Discover the mystery, beauty, and wonder of Wisconsin Dells.
The Upper Dells boat tours will take you to amazing spots along the Wisconsin River. Some of the best tours of Wisconsin Dells are on the water. The Upper Dells boat tours continue that tradition. Set off on a guided tour through the beautiful scenery, learn some history, and have some laughs.
All right, folks. Well, welcome aboard with Joliet. Well, we are now embarking on our 2-hour, 10-mile round trip through the beautiful and scenic Upper Dells of the Wisconsin River. Now, on today's trip, we're making 2 stops. The first being at Witches Gulch, where you guys all have the opportunity to take a walk through a cool and beautiful canyon. Now, after Witches Gulch, we're going to head across the river to Stand Rock, where you guys will see that world's famous dog jump. But before we get too far into it, I will introduce myself to you guys. My name's Emma. I'll be your tour guide today. I recently just finished up my freshman year of college at University of South in Madison. Now, this is my second year here out on the Boats with Dells boat tour, so I hope that after the tour today, you see why I decided to come back. That is quite enough about me, though. I'm going to hand it like over to your pilot today. Alright, guys. Hello. I'm going to welcome you on board the Joliet. My name is Coral, and I will be your pilot today. Now, this is my second year out here with the boat tour, but when I'm not out here on the river, I do attend college. I'm a junior at the University of Dubuque.
So since we're going to be together for a couple hours, I'll introduce the crew. My name's Gary. I'm your guide today.
Hi, Gary.
Hi. I'm local to the area. I live between the Dells and the beautiful Twin Cities of Adams and Friendship. This is my 5th year here driving boats. And in the summertime, I try to jet boats. Those are those blue boats. You see one over to the right. Go fast, spin around, splash, have all kinds of fun. This time of year, I help on the tour boats. Driving for us today is Captain Joe. He's got over 50 years of commercial piloting experience, over 30 of it here right in the Dells. And he's licensed through the United States Coast Guard, and he's 5th-generation river pilot out here, going all the way back to the lumberjack days. So we're in really good hands here today. All right, so a little bit about the river itself. It is the Wisconsin River. This is the largest, longest river in the state. It runs about 430 miles long. It starts at the upper Michigan border at Blackfeet is there, small lake. And it runs roughly southwest across the state. And then the river flows into the Mississippi River at Wyalusing State Park, and that's near Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Now, during its travels, this river falls about 1,100 feet in elevation, so that makes it perfect for generating hydroelectric power. There's 27 dams on this river, and the very first hydroelectric dam was built right here in the Dells. About a half mile behind us, you'd find the Kilbourne Dam, and that was built in 1908 to provide power for streetcars in Milwaukee, because they just didn't need that kind of power near the Dells at that point. It's still active today. It's owned by Alliant Energy and serves about 10,000 customers here in the area. It's a 10-megawatt hydroelectric plant. The color of the water, you may notice, has a brown tint to it. And that's not mud or pollution, that's actually tannins, or tannic acid. That's a harmless substance. The river picks that up north in the tamarack tree swamps. So tannic acid, I always like to describe it as if you have rain gutters, you have a bucket with water and you get some sticks in there and it turns that water a little brown, that's really all it is. It's just the coloration from the wood itself.
And tannic acid might sound kind of harmful, but it's completely harmless to all humans and wildlife. You think I need to consume some of the things that sound like coffees, black teas, colas that you're like, are Captain down here. Your favorite breakfast beverage. Jack Daniels whiskey.
On our right side, you're going to see a lower set of cliffs. These are called the Swallows Cliffs or the Swallow Nests. And we're going to start seeing some little holes in the cliffs on the right-hand side. Those are called bugs, B-U-G-G-S. And that's where cliff and bank swallows make their home. There's been a few around right now, but I think with the colder weather, they've been holding back. But they come up here every year from Venezuela, usually in mid-April. And you'll see them swooping about the water. They eat about 2 times their body weight in bugs around here, including mosquitoes. So they're very welcome here in the Dells, especially in the summer. I know what you're thinking. You're probably going to ask me, Carrie, what do you do with the mosquitoes they don't eat? And we actually humanely live trap those and send those to Minnesota.
Here on the South River, there's not a single mosquito. It's because all the rest of them are married. Yeah, no, I've never been to a mosquito wedding, but Coral has, and she says they suck. Yeah.
All right, so coming up ahead here, you're going to see our first couple of points of interest. You're going to see two cliffs along the water here that's on the right and soon to be on either side of us. Those are called the jaws of the gateway to the upper dells. On the right-hand side, that cliff that stands about 65 feet above the water is called High Rock. And on the left, across from High Rock, is Romance Cliff, and then stands about 75 feet above the water. So these cliffs also mark the deepest point in the Wisconsin River. It's actually about 110 feet deep through here, and it's the intersection of 4 Wisconsin counties. When we get between the cliffs, we'll actually be in Columbia, Sauk, Adams, and Juneau counties all at once. There is a Native American legend here about Romance Cliff on the left. Couples used to hold their marriage ceremonies up there. And during the ceremony, they would light a pine branch or a pine bough on fire. They would drop it down to the water. If that pine branch stayed lit all the way to the water, then the chief would proclaim that this was going to be a long, prosperous, and very blessed marriage. Now, if that pine branch went out before it hit the water, they were promised a long marriage. Just ahead of us now, up on the right, a couple hundred feet, you're going to see a rock along the right-hand side, about 2 feet off the water. The rock looks like a stack of pancakes. It's called Chimney Rock, and it's a great example of the differential erosion that created the dells, and that's wind, water, and frost erosion. And it was named because of its resemblance to the stick and mud chimneys that the settlers built. And actually, that's the second most photographed rock formation in the dells.
I hope you guys got your imaginations on board. You might need them for this next rock formation. A little bit to our right, you will see this triangular-shaped rock that ring sits out inside there. Now, we like to say that this is the nose, the slit above it are eyes, the slit below it are mouths, and the vegetation around the rock is a headdress. Now, we call this one Blackhawk's profile because it resembles a Native American leader who used to be around the area named Blackhawk.
Blackhawk was a famous war leader to the Fox and Sauk tribes in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. And he engaged in a running battle with the Illinois militia back in 1832. This was known as the Blackhawk Wars. Now, this war took place, it started in northern Illinois, worked its way up the Mississippi and Wisconsin rivers, and was 4 months in duration. Now, during this time, though, it was rumored that Blackhawk and his tribe hid out here in the dells. It was never proven, but he was captured about 40 miles northwest of here, near Tomah, Wisconsin. Blackhawk was a great strategist, a great tactician. He did so much with so little that he gained the respect of his enemies. And to this day, there's things named after Blackhawk. There's the Chicago Blackhawks hockey team, and of course the Blackhawk helicopter that the military uses to this day.
Now, throughout our tour today, here's a whole slide of you will see this special type of sandstone. Now, that sandstone is called hot sand or Cambrian sandstone, and it can only be found in 4 different places in the world. Hot sand, Germany, where about one of its names, desert Switzerland, upstate New York, and a large deposit being right here on the Wisconsin River.
It's about 300 to 500 million years old, and it was formed as the ocean floors under the Cambrian Sea. So basically what we're looking at is compressed sand that was the ocean bed. So our rock is very, very soft around here. If we had a piece in our hands, we could crumble it right back into sand. It actually holds enough water and nutrients to allow trees and other plants to grow right out of the rock.
Now, at any given time, it can be about 5 to 15 degrees cooler on the river than it is downtown. And that makes you guys the coolest people in Wisconsin. How proud.
You might be wondering how the dells were formed. That took place during the last ice age, about 14,000 years ago. And what happened was the glaciers actually went around this area. So they missed this 12-mile stretch that we call the dells. And as the glaciers receded, all that water formed a large lake north of here. It was called Glacial Lake Wisconsin. It was held by an ice and mud dam that located, I believe, near what's now Cascade Mountain. And anyway, this lake was 100 miles long, 50 miles wide, up to 500 feet deep. It was very huge. And all at once, that dam broke, and all that water rushed through here, cutting out these cliffs and canyons in about 1 to 2 weeks, according to geologists. They called it a cataclysmic event. Up ahead, you're going to notice that the river splits. You're going to see straight ahead of us a channel, and then over to our right. Now, normally we would go to the right. That would take us through the Narrows, and that's what was created during that cataclysmic event. However, with the high water we're having right now, it's basically a whitewater rapids. So we're going to go straight ahead up what's known as the Old Riverbed. And the Old Riverbed, they say, was the original path the Wisconsin River took before the Narrows was created. Now, normally it's too shallow up here for our boats. It's usually 2 to 3 feet deep. The Chicago, it takes about 5 feet to operate. But at this point, with the water being about 6 feet higher than normal, that's the way we're going to take straight ahead. Now, between the two channels here, coming up on our right, is Blackhawk's Island, and that's the largest island in this area. It's about 210 acres, with an acre being about the size of a football field. Blackhawk's Island is owned by the University of Wisconsin Extension, and they use it for Camp Out of Woods. That's an outdoor learning center where 4-H kids and other youth groups come here to the Dells to learn about nature. You're in less than 1% of our passengers that actually get to come back here. It's a very rare event that we can come behind Blackhawk's Island, so it's kind of special. Now, to give you an idea of how high the water is right now, that sign in the middle of the channel is normally on the bank, and it's usually about 3-4 feet onto the water. So on the right-hand side is normally a sandbar. You can kind of see the sand there underneath the water. And on the left is the channel. A couple Canada geese ahead of us. And that reminds me, we have lots of waterfowl here, ducks, geese, things like that we've seen. Seagulls out here. Last week, Captain Joe and I saw loons out on the Sandrock Bay. We've had different types of ducks here. We've had bufflehead ducks, mallard ducks, black ducks, wood ducks in the flooded timber up and around the island up here. So keep your eyes open. And we do see bald eagles once in a while, but that's no guarantee. But if we do see any, we'll point them out. A lot of times they like to fly the river channels, or they sit up in the trees along the sides. Wildlife we have in the area, we have lots of white-tailed deer. That's probably the most prevalent of the larger mammals that we have. And we have plenty of foxes, and there's coyotes, there's of course badgers, raccoons. I've seen some fishers, and even here along the river, we'll have some mink and things like that. I've actually had some wolves on my trail cams, not too far north of here, 15 minutes or so, so they're in the area. Once in a while, we'll see, every year or two, there'll be a report of a mountain lion. And of course, we have black bears in the area too.
Now, I myself, I'm pretty terrified of bears, so I did ask one of our older pilots that seemed to know, what should I do if I see a bear? So, he said to pick up a can of white acrylic paint. As well as that, you're going to pick up a 3-inch big paintbrush with the two of these. You're going to draw a nice big goal line around yourself. That's of course because, if you're in Wisconsin, those bears who have a hard time making it past that goal line. Now, we won't be taking Old Riverbed on our tour today because it is only about 3 feet deep, and Joliet does graph about 5 feet down into the water. Now, the channel on the right-hand side, that one's called the Narrows. On our left-hand side here, you are going to see this rock that kind of sits up inside. Now, if you look about 30 yards upstream, you're going to see another rock of similar size, shape, and vegetation. Now, that second rock's a bit hard to see because of the trees, but it does have that orange and white Slow No Lake sign on it. You can see that. Now, because these two rocks do look so similar, we call them the twin sisters. Now, coming up on our right-hand side here, you are going to see what we call Chapel Gorge. And we call this Chapel Gorge because the canopy of trees inside that little canyon right there kind of creates a cathedral-like setting. Now, this time we are entering the part of the river that we call the Narrows. So, I need guesses on why it's called the Narrows. No? That's okay. Maybe not a super smart group today. Yeah. I'm kidding, guys. Of course, we do call this the Narrows because it is extremely narrow. In fact, the Narrows is the narrowest part of the whole Wisconsin River. Now, actually, the smallest part of the Narrows comes in at only 52 feet wide. Now, before Wisconsin was known for our beer, cheese, and Great Bay Packers, we were actually known for our logging industry. And when we were popular for our logging industry, all of those trains, planes, and cars were not yet a thing, meaning these logs did have to be shipped down the Wisconsin River to make it all the way to the mighty Mississippi.
So lumberjacks, and you gotta think guys like Paul Bunyan would cut down huge white pine trees in northern Wisconsin, lay them out on the ice after they'd milled them down, formed them into rafts, and they would ride those rafts down the spring floods. And then they would sell that lumber along the Mississippi in places like St. Louis and New Orleans. The Wisconsin Dells, it turns out, was the most dangerous place for that. And the rapids through the Devil's Elbow and everything was actually worse than it is today. It ran about 35 miles an hour, and was very dangerous. And unfortunately, at least a dozen lumberjacks a year lost their lives here. So a group of local gentlemen got together and they began guiding those rafts through.
Now, standing river pilots were men who would stand on the front of the rafts with those lumber raftsmen and would help guide them down the river safely. Now, the most famous of those standing river pilots was none other than Leroy Gates, and he was said to never have lost a log nor a leg. We also like to say that Leroy Gates left us our first billboard here in Wisconsin Dells. So coming up on our left-hand side here, there's no elbow. At roughly our 11 o'clock position, under that dark band, you may read an inscription that says Leroy Gates, Dells and River Pilot, 1849 to 58. Now, as I'm sure many of you are aware, all those trains, planes, and cars did eventually become a thing. So unfortunately for Leroy Gates and those other standing river pilots, they did lose their jobs. But luckily for Leroy Gates, he did find something that he liked a lot better. He created something called the Dells Boat Tours, and you guys are all on deck today. Of course, the Dells Boat Tours in the 1800s were a bit different. That time you'd find Leroy Gates. You'd give him 2 quarters, he'd give you 2 oars, and he'd sit on the back of your raft while you paddled himself and yourselves all the way down the Wisconsin River while he told you thick, made-up stories. Now, if you guys look ahead of the boat and to our left, you will see the other side of the old riverbed. Now, this tells me that we traveled about 1/3 of the further up Blackhawk Island.
Up ahead here, we'll be rejoining the actual river channel again. And so you'll see that as we rejoin the river channel and we go back into the actual flow of the river, this boat will get pushed around a little bit. And to give you some perspective, the Chicagoan weighs about 41 tons. It's 55 feet long and 13.5 feet wide. So that's how much force this river has. It'll push us around. Nothing's going to happen that's bad, but you'll certainly feel it. Now, if you look straight ahead, you're going to see some railings. That's our dock that leads back to Coldwater Canyon, where we have our ghost boat in the summertime. They get to walk through that haunted canyon, get chased by zombies, chainsaws, all that kind of fun stuff. Those tours will start Memorial Day weekend, go all the way to Halloween. Actually, they go every night until Labor Day, and then after that, they go on weekends till Halloween. Very, very popular here in the Dells.
On our right-hand side here, you're going to see this flat slab of rock. Now, we call this the giant shield, and we use it as a natural water marker here in Wisconsin River. Now, a lot of times the water does stay at the base where it is now, but every once in a while, we'll creep farther up that rock.
In 1938, though, the highest water they ever had was 4 feet above the top of that rock. And in 2010 and 1993, it reached the top of that rock. The river does freeze over in the wintertime. This area we're entering right now is called Barry's Eddy. And if you look ahead of the boat, you'll notice that the river does run sideways right here. The current crosses over. On the right-hand side, you can see some buildings up on the bank, and that's called Chula Vista Resort. Chula Vista is the only resort we're going to see up here in the Upper Dells. The name Chula Vista is Spanish for beautiful view. And then just under these buildings on the right, you're going to see a narrow channel. And on the left side of that channel is Steamboat Rock, and that's the largest all-rock island on the Wisconsin River. Named by aerialists in the 1800s. They thought it looked like a steamboat from above. Hey, you might be wondering why it is that the only buildings you see are like this resort, and that's because in about 1900, a wealthy railroad executive moved into the area. His name was George Crandall, and he also owned one of the predecessors to the Dells Boat Tours. And he said, you know, if I'm going to be giving scenic boat tours, I'd like some scenery. Because here's the thing, back in 1900, this area of the river looked a lot like downtown Wisconsin Dells. There were hotels, resorts, there were boat docks out here. I heard tell that there was up to 40 boat companies operating at one time out here. And so it was quite busy, but it wasn't very scenic. And Mr. Crandall was able to start buying up property. He did that all the way through the Great Depression and ended up buying 1,200 acres of land, including those resorts and hotels and things like that. And once he owned about 90% of the upper Dells, 70% of the lower Dells, he began tearing down, burning down all those buildings, tearing out the stocks, and he replanted 140,000 trees in the area to bring it back to what it looks like today in its natural state. Now, Mr. Crandall owned the land until 1938. That's when he passed, and it went to his two daughters and his wife. In 1953, they signed the property over to the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. And in 1993, the property went into the ownership of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, or the DNR. And this is all state natural area now. And that means it enjoys a much higher level of protection than state parks. And so hopefully we'll have this natural beauty for generations to come, thanks to Mr. Crandall and all of his hard work. On the right-hand side is the George Crandall Memorial Forest. If you're wondering how Wisconsin Dells got its name, the Wisconsin River, the name Wisconsin was a Native American term, Wisconsin. And that got anglicized over the years, and that meant something like where dark waters meet or deep dark rushing water. And Dells actually comes from the French. If you look up the word Dells, D-A-L-L-E-S, in the dictionary, you will find that it says like flagstone or flat or layered rock, which that actually works for our cliffs. But Dells was also a word used by the French fur traders to describe anywhere a river went through a rocky valley. And I think that's actually probably the best description of the Dells. So in 1931, they changed the name of the city to the Wisconsin Dells. This area was always known as the Dells of the Wisconsin River. Native American influence in the area. The main tribe in the area used to be known as the Winnebago tribe. People have heard that name. There's Winnebago parks, Winnebago counties, things like that. People have Winnebago motorhomes. But it turns out that that name was a derogatory term given to them by a rival tribe, and it meant something like people of the stinking water. In 1994, the tribe went back to its original name, which was Ho-Chungra, shortened to Ho-Chunk, which means people of the great voice. As we look ahead of the boat, we're going to notice that the river gets much wider up here, and that's because we're going to be entering Stand Rock Bay. Now, when the dam was built in town, all this water on this side of the dam raised about 17 feet. But because we had a lot of those narrow cliffs and valleys, as it were, it really couldn't spread out. This is the first chance the water really got a chance to spread out. It's over a mile wide out here. And this used to actually be a swampy island area known as the Thousand Islands of the Dells. Straight ahead, you're going to see Louis Bluff. That's a rounded hill along the river. And Louis Bluff is known as the head of the Dells. If you look past Louis Bluff, you're not going to see any more cliffs or anything. That's where the glaciers came through and flattened it out.
Now that is Louis Bluff, named after the French explorer Louis de Blay. Now, Louis never wanted to be so far away from his bluff that he was unable to see it. Therefore, when he passed away, he was buried at the base of the bluff, along with his 3 wives and 2 out of his 14 children.
On the right side, these cliffs are known as the Sunset Cliffs because they face to the west. And in the evenings, in the summertime especially, they glow with a beautiful coloration of the sunset. These cliffs are the highlight of our sunset dinner cruise each night. We take our largest vessel up here, stop at Witches Gulch, and then go out onto the bay here and watch the sunset and as it reflects off the cliffs. That's a 3-hour tour that takes place every evening in the summer. It has live music and great food, and I think most important, it has open bar for the first hour. So that's pretty cool too. And straight ahead is Signal Point. That's the tallest cliff we're going to see today, about 95 feet tall. That cliff was used by Native Americans to light signal fires to start their ceremonies across Stand Rock Bay.
At this time, we are entering our first shore landing of our trip today, Witches Gulch. Now, Witches Gulch does consist of a trail about 4 blocks long in total. 2 blocks in, 2 blocks out. You'll be retracing your steps, of course, meaning the way that you go back there. It's going to be the same way that you come back to the boat. Now, at the end of the trail, there's a concession stand, bathrooms, and a designated smoking area. Now, the smoking area is marked off by a stop sign, so of course we ask that you guys do not go past that stop sign. Now, if you do need to use this smoking area, please do it here, as this is your one and only opportunity to do so during our tour today. Now, anything that you guys get at the concession stand, you can bring back on board with you. We're going to be there for about 20 minutes or so, but it does take about 5 minutes to walk the trail in its entirety, so I'm going to give you a 15-minute mark to start making your way back to the boat.
The guides will let you know when it's safe to enter the canyon.
Witches Gulch was carved out by the wind and the water over the years. As you advance, you will see the mossy rocks and narrow passageways.
The forest above the sandstone cliffs enhances the experience and can make you feel small. It is cool to see all of the layers of rock up close.
One of the first named formations that you will see is whirlpool chambers. The waters rush on both sides for most of the walk.
The wooden deck makes the canyon accessible to most. The walk isn't too long, so most kids should be able to handle it.
A small waterfall, Witches Falls, flows into the formation Witches Bathtub. You can see another small waterfall on the other side of the path.
Along the way, you will come across Witch's Window. The softer rock was worn away and created the window.
With a name like Witches Gulch, some visitors have felt an eeriness in this canyon, especially on foggy days. Spooky Lane is one location you might feel those vibes.
This is the spooky lane, right?
Does it feel spooky to you?
No. This is cool. Not so scary, right?
Yeah, not so scary.
We're almost there.
Yep, almost there.
And that's a spooky lane in there. Here we are.
Toward the end of the trail, the canyon widens. This area has an old-style well that is great for photo opportunities.
The concession stand sells popcorn, pizza, and other snack foods. There are drinks like hot chocolate, soda, and water. There is also a spot that sells souvenirs.
The walk back is just as spectacular as the walk in. When you return to the boat, you will go back to your original seat.
Alright, folks, so welcome back from Witches Gulch. You guys all enjoy your walk back there?
So Witches Gulch was discovered by a gentleman by the name of Henry Hamilton Bennett. He was a famous landscape photographer from the Dells, and he was responsible for naming all the rocks we've seen. He had actually gone off to the Civil War and injured his hands. He had been a carpenter before the war and was looking for another way to support his family, and he became a photographer. And lucky for us he did, because he's preeminent. And so anyway, he was told that there was the possibility of a haunted canyon back here. Of course, the Native Americans said stay out, and like a good explorer, he went back there anyway. And so he found Witches Gulch, which we enjoy today. Now that was back in the 1860s. And in 1875, they built the first walkway back here. And in 1877, the first restaurant where we just had concessions. So, very long-standing tradition.
This time we're now making our way across the river to go to our second shore landing of our trip today, Sand Rock. Now we use the cross the bait into Sand Rock, and it can get a bit windy out there, so especially if they're on top deck, make sure you're holding on to all those important things. Your phones, your keys, your hats, your small children. Those things that really matter, of course. Now, if somebody does fall overboard, that's completely fine. Sometimes that happens from time to time. Yeah, no worries. If this does happen, just raise your right hand. I'll come find you. I'll raise my right hand and we'll wave it goodbye together. Because you know, once it's in the river, it's never coming back. So, alright, folks. So like I said, we are approaching Stand Rock. Now, Stand Rock is the #1 most photographed rock here out on the South River. Now, you can't see it quite yet, but once we get going back through the trail, you'll be able to see it. Now, many people do know Wisconsin Dells with those t-shirt shops, the water parks, maybe even the Upside Down White House, but actually Stand Rock is originally what brought people to the area in the first place. Now, of course, someone did have to make Stand Rock famous, and that was none other than H.H. Bennett or Henry Hamilton Bennett. Now, H.H. Bennett was a local photographer of the area. Now, if you're familiar with 1800s photography, the subject of the photo did have to stay completely still for up to 4 minutes long. Now, he found this to be pretty difficult as he wanted to photograph moving things on a moving river, so because of this, he decided to create a new invention out of a matchbox and rubber bands that he called the snapper. Now, the snapper is similar to what we would all call a shutter, which is all of our phones and cameras today that allows us to take an instantaneous picture. He was the original inventor of stop action photography. Now, of course, his invention was extremely out of this world design theory, and he did have to prove it somehow, so as a good father would, he sent his 14-year-old son Ashley up to Stand Rock, which stands at 47 feet tall, and he made him jump to and from in order to get this perfect picture of him suspended in midair between these two rocks.
That made the Dells famous. That famous photograph is called Leaving the Chasm. And that was posted up at train stations and printed in newspapers across the country. And people wanted to know where that was. And that was Wisconsin Dells. That was in 1888. People had been coming to see Stand Rock ever since. The boats have been taking people back there since the dam was built. I did have a guy on my boat last year on my tour boat. He was 85 years old, and his dad did the jump across the Stand Rock in 1916. So that was kind of cool. Now in the 1940s, though, they kind of discontinued the passengers doing it and had the pilots and guides do the jump. In the 1960s, they started using German Shepherds and other dogs to do the jump, and that's what they do today.
You will see that we're approaching 2 docks. Now, this does mean we're going to dock and go here shortly, then get off and walk through that trail.
As you make your way to Stand Rock, you will notice the walk is more difficult than Witches Gulch. The elevation changes more frequently here.
One of the highlights of the tour is Stand Rock. Stand Rock is a flat slab of rock atop a 47-foot-tall layered sandstone pedestal. Large capstones are yet another example of sandstone erosion.
This is where Bennett's famous photo was taken. If you want to try the leap in a safer environment, you can do so at the H.H. Bennett Studio downtown. Or maybe just leave it to the professionals.
Welcome to Stand Rock. Like I was saying, Stand Rock is the #1 most photographed rock here out on the Wisconsin River. H.H. Bennett did need to prove his invention of the snapper somehow, so as any good father would, he sent his 14-year-old son Ashley up to Stand Rock, made him jump to and from in order to get this picture that you guys see behind me now. Now, that picture was taken in 1888 and didn't happen in 1 try, nor did it happen in 2, but after 17 good tries, he finally did get that perfect picture. Now we have a few dogs to do the jump for us. Alrighty, we're ready.
3, 2, 1.
Alrighty, folks. Well, that was one of our new dogs that you saw today. I'm pretty sure that her name's Trilled. That was one of her first jumps she's done for the public. That was the world famous jumping dog of Juneau County. So, yeah, with that, you guys can take that right trail.
The walk continues with other impressive formations along the way. Some of the overhanging rocks look like they've been sheared off.
There is a second chance to get snacks and souvenirs. The building has Wisconsin Dells merchandise, a few exhibits, and a snack bar that even has a few adult beverages.
As you leave the building, you will see a room within the rock named Luncheon Hall. Early travelers were known to have picnics here. You can see your boat from this area.
There is a tower viewer that points to the north. This spot also offers a close-up view of a formation called Demon's Anvil. This is a great example of erosion that occurs in a shorter amount of time.
Continuing on the trail, you will travel through more rock. You will want to check out the spot two rock faces meet.
The top of Toadstool Rock is the same resistant rock layer that forms the top of Stand Rock and the roof over Luncheon Hall.
Visor Ledge is an interesting overhanging rock formation. Not sure I would trust the edge.
At this point, it is a short walk down to the boat and back to your seat.
Alrighty guys, welcome back on board the Joliet. Alrighty, well at this time you guys may notice we did flip the boat around. That's because if you scan the left-hand shoreline, all that sandstone and those rock formations do tend to diminish. Instead, we are met with Holiday Shores Resort as well as some fairly shallow water. Now, like I said, the river does get very shallow over that way, far too shallow for us to take our boat through. And I don't think anybody got on board today, hoping to push a 38-ton boat. So we are going to head back to our home docks. It's going to take about 20 to 25 minutes on our way back downtown. You guys are going to see all the same rock formations you saw on the way upriver. They will just be on the other side. Now, if you guys look on our left-hand side, you are going to see our maintenance shed and our dry docking area.
Our tour boats you can see up on shore, and what we do is we lower those V-shaped steel cradles down into the water, position the boat up onto those, and then it gets winched up on shore. It takes about 20 minutes to get a boat like the Chicagoan out. Jet boats come out on a quad-axle trailer, similar to a fishing boat trailer, but much heavier.
Now, there is one boat that we go pull in the water each and every single year. That's that big white boat you see ahead of us and to our left. Now, that one's called the Clipper Winnebago. We use it for our sunset dinner cruises that run most nights during the summertime. Now, the Clipper Winnebago is the oldest and largest boat in our fleet. In fact, it's the oldest boat running our main Salting River. She's celebrating her 101st birthday this year. Now, we throw the Clipper out of the water about every 5 years or so. It's because it takes our maintenance crew a full 40-hour work week to get her completely out of the water. Coming into view now, you are going to see that railroad car bridge. Now, fun fact, this railroad bridge has actually been built 3 times. Now, the first time they built it out of wood, and unfortunately it did burn down due to sparks from passing cars. So, of course, logically thinking that second time, they wanted to make sure that never ever happened again, so they built it out of wood once again. And as you can probably assume, a few weeks later, it did burn down. Now, actually, the third time, they did get a bit smarter. They hired some new contractors, and this time they built it out of steel. As you can see, third time's a charm because it is steel there. Yeah, and that joke is steel, not thunder. Yeah, sorry, I had to take it home for you guys. Well, as we see our home docks do come back into view, that does mean that our short time here together is coming to an end. So on behalf of myself, Coral, and the Dells Boat Tours, we do just want to give you guys a huge thank you for joining us today.
Be sure to tip your guides for a job well done, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.
There's nothing like experiencing the tour firsthand, so we recommend taking this tour yourself. We also recommend this fun activity in the Wisconsin Dells.